nervous because I'm here now.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin here with my co-host James Haskell. In this episode, we're going to recap the Baltimore Ravens 24-10 win over the Indianapolis Colts. But before we do, please take a second, give us click the subscribe button, give us a like, and if you're interested in interacting more with the show, check out our Patreon. But Jimmy, give us some more details on the win.
Yeah, before I do that, I also want to shout out our new Patreon here, Zach Thomas. We appreciate you coming on board, man. Excited to interact with you and have your questions be answered. So we'll get to that later in the show. But we always like to give a shout out to our new patrons as they come on board. But as far as details of the win, Glenn gave you the final score, and I appreciate that, 24-10. But I want to break down some additional team stats here to give you an idea of the game. Offensively, we'll go with rushing, where the two teams compared. The Ravens attempted 38 rushes for 110 yards with a 2.9 average. That's because there was a negative in there. But anyway, then, of course, the Indianapolis Colts went for 21 for 112 and had a rushing touchdown. Of course, we had two passing the ball, a little bit of a different story. Lamar Jackson goes 19 of 23 for 170. Phillip Rivers chucks that thing around the field, 43 attempts for 25 completions and 227 yards. So a little bit of team stats here. Why don't we take it a level deeper here and go into some individual stats, and then we'll move over to the defensive side of the ball. Glenn, we'll start with rushing. Lamar Jackson had 13 attempts, and I just want to ask you a question here. He had 13 attempts for 58 yards. So Lamar Jackson was our leading rusher, also had the longest rush of the day of 9 yards. And I'll pose this question to you once I'm done reading these, but Dobbins goes 12 for 30, Gus goes 11 for 23, and then, of course, Duvernay goes 1 for -1. But my question to you is are you concerned that I think that this is the third game this year where Lamar has been our leading rusher at the end of the game? Any concerns around that?
Well, I mean, I guess if you'd like
as
to
far
see
as attempts,
it,
as far as attempts, sorry.
Oh,
the
right,
attempts
yeah,
is what I
yeah.
want to focus on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I like to do is I look at the running backs as one, and then count Lamar as a different, because we saw all season that the running backs are being cycled in and out, and
yeah,
obviously quarterback isn't being cycled in and out. He's going to be in every play. But yeah, I mean, he was our leading rusher last year from yards perspective, so it doesn't really stun me. But yeah, I was a little bit more surprised when you hear all offseason that they're looking to throw more. They're looking to cut down some of his carries. To see him still, what is this, week 9, and he's our leading carrier. A little bit surprising, I guess you could say. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that, and I mentioned this, I think a couple of shows back, I think one of the things that we're realizing is that Lamar still has way to go as far as like teams respecting him in the passing game. No disrespect to his game, but I think that running at that volume might have to be a career thing for Lamar Jackson to be as effective as he is. Just trying to change a tiger's stripes is difficult to do because it changes his entire value prop as a player, right? So
and
all right,
the value
so the passing
in our
game,
offense, hey, hang on, let me just say one more thing, because
yeah,
as I'm rethinking it, it is a little bit of a problem. I think that Lamar led our team with just 13 carries. I don't want to see, we talked about this. We wanted to see a commitment to the run game to where I want to see guys getting more into a rhythm. I want to see, the number one back, whether it be Gus or if when Ingram comes back, get around 20 carries, and maybe the complimentary back get 8 to 10. But yeah, I need to see Lamar leading our team in carries with just 13 in a game where, Stanley's just went down. I expected us to commit to the run more early on, and we'll get into some of that more in a little bit. But yeah, definitely in the first half, wanted to see more of a commitment to the running backs.
Yeah, Glenn, don't spill all the beans, man.
Yeah, gotcha.
Don't spill all the beans. We're going to talk about that. But no, I agree with you. I'd like to see, like you said, maybe like today would have been nice to see Gus with 20, Dobbins with 15, right? Lamar with like 8. You know what I mean?
Nice,
that breakdown. Now we're nitpicking. You got to win the game at the end of the day, but that is something that we want to see. Now, if I had to tell you, or if I had told you before this game that Nick Boyle was going to be our leading receiver as far as catches, not targets, but catches today, I think we all would have been a little surprised. But I just want to break down the passing game today. As I mentioned, Lamar threw for 170 on 19 attempts. 4 of those went to Nick Boyle. And that's right. Nick Boyle was 4 for 4 targets, 4 receptions, 46 yards, and our longest passing play of the day for 21. Snead also, I think this is off of the last game. Snead went 4 for 4 as well for 37. And I'm starting to see him get more attempts, get more involved. I think there's a little bit of a lull in his game a couple weeks ago. Hollywood, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but after the tweet that John asked him to take down, got 5 attempts in this game, had 3 catches for just 38 yards. And then Andrews, same thing, 5 for 3. And then another thing that's important is the running backs got 2 each. Boykin also had 1 as well. And we'll get into this stuff a little bit deeper. But one guy we don't see on the list here, Dez Bryant, did not register a target, or a reception, of course, based on the fact there's no targets. But he was out there. Nice to see him. I don't, as far as the Colts go, their breakdown was, Pascal led the team in targets and receptions, six targets, 5 receptions. Pittman, I apologize, led the team in targets, but he had 7, but only 4 receptions. He looked good out there. Your guy, Ali Cox, went 3 for 3. And then Harris, of course, went 4 for 4. Rivers chucks the ball 43 times, so they got a lot more guys getting involved. Burton, Wilkins, Taylor, and then Doyle before he got his bell rung by Deshaun Elliott.
Yes, he did.
My gosh, I don't know if he could spell his name after that.
Yeah, that was tough.
But so let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. First thing I want to mention, and we're going to talk about this. You go down the stats, and you guys will look at them. You'll notice 0 sacks.
Yeah.
Something to be concerned about. And before I let you dig into that, we're going to talk about that in a little bit.
Okay.
So stay tuned.
All right.
But the other thing I want to mention is, Peters, of course, getting on the board with the controversial interception. And if I'm not mistaken here, we won the turnover battle in this game, unless I'm missing something.
No, you're right. Yeah. 2-1, right?
Yeah, 2-1. And heck, we needed them. Of course, the fumble that came from that Chuck Clark ran back for the touchdown was also great. I think that was Malik Harrison that popped that one out, didn't he?
I don't. Let me see.
It was either Malik or it was Marcus Peters. It was kind of
Peters. It was Peters.
Was it Peters?
Yeah.
So huge game today by Peters. But Leonard, of course, their inside linebacker, had a huge game. Was running all over the field. I think he had 15 tackles. So that's the tale of the tape. Those are the stats. Let's dig into some of our concerns, some of our notes from the game.
Yeah.
So let's get right into it. We're now 6-2, still two games back from the Steelers. But
Cowboys.
Yeah, geez, you knew they weren't going to pull it off. But one of the things I want to get into is health. How are we looking at the end of this AFC battle, Glenn? Sorry, I went on that soliloquy there. I'll let you jump in.
Yeah, no problem. Well, Calais Campbell made a phenomenal play on the second play of the game, took on the double team, tossed all-pro guard Quentin Nelson to the side, and made a tackle on Jonathan Taylor right around the line of scrimmage. Phenomenal play, but of course he went down with the calf injury on the play and tried to work it out, tried to tough it out and get back out, but just couldn't get back out on the field. But the good news is John Harbaugh did say after the game that the injury appears to be not significant and look to get him back next week. So hopefully, as long as he can get back to practice, we'll see him next week. But it definitely impacted the team when he went down early because the Colts looked to establish themselves in the beginning of the game, and they were able to go down and put up 7 early on with the Jonathan Taylor touchdown. And let's be honest, the Ravens did not start the game well. I mean, I'm looking at their first few possessions here. I see punt, 5 straight punts before halftime. And I mentioned this before we started. Unbelievable stat to me. At halftime, the Ravens had a total of 55 yards, and their running backs had just 4 carries for 4 yards at halftime, Jimmy. That is just unacceptable. In a game that we predicted that the Ravens would lean heavily on the run game, are you as puzzled or were you as surprised as I was early on that they didn't do so in the first half?
Yeah. I'm having a hard time here, Glenn. At half, I was thinking what I was going to say on the show, and I was like, you know what? I'm really going to have to recalibrate my expectations of the Ravens, who they are as a team. I'm like taking inventory on my own thoughts and opinions about the Ravens, right? I'm really trying to be honest with myself here. Like, look myself in the mirror as a Ravens fan and say, all right, what do you really think is going to happen? Because I can't come on and start talking crazy like we're Super Bowl contenders if we're playing like we did in the first half. But a big reason that was happening was because I didn't understand, of course, Stanley goes down. We seem to be more limited in the pass game based on the lack of pass protection. Stanley's probably our best pure pass protector, and he's gone, right? So you think, all right, we add some size out there. Well, I mean, Makari's not as big as Terry Phillips, but on the edge. Fluker's now your full-time right tackle. Orlando Brown's now your full-time left tackle. You probably got the two biggest tackles. If not, they're up there in the NFL as far as weight and size. So you're going to run the ball more, and then 0 rushing yards in the first quarter, 4 attempts from our running backs in the first half. I don't understand the reluctance to it. I didn't get it. Greg Roman was just confusing me in that game. I'd love to know what John Harbaugh said to Greg Roman at halftime. But yes, I am concerned. Because I don't care whether it's in the first half, second half, from the second quarter to third quarter. We can't run the ball for 4 quarters. I don't get it.
Well, we can. It just doesn't seem like the coaching staff really wants to commit to it.
That's what I should. Yeah, that's a good point.
And then also, you gotta hold on to the ball. It's uncharacteristic of Gus, but when they did come out, I don't know what happened at halftime, but boy, they came out inspired to start the second half. I thought they looked great. They had 8-play drive, 68 yards. And then, like I said, uncharacteristic. Gus gets the ball knocked out of his hands by their all-pro defensive tackle, DeForest Buckner, recovered by their look-to-be Pro Bowl linebacker, Darius Leonard, who was absolutely all over the field. This guy, let me say something about this guy, Jimmy. He's 6'2" and has the wingspan of a 6'10" human being. The guy is ridiculously long, insanely fast with sideline-to-sideline speed. The guy's incredible. So, yeah, not like Gus to do that. But the good news is after that, that blunder by Gus, Marcus Peters has the controversial interception of Phillip Rivers. Kind of a interesting play because he did have the ball somewhat in his possession for four steps backwards. Now, whether or not he had possession for all 4 of those steps, or maybe you can find 2 combined steps in which he looks like he had the ball secure. Whatever, but great play by Peters and just a horrible throw by Rivers. Was he? I can't remember. Was he hit on that throw? I think he was hit on that throw, right?
Dude, he just has no gas behind it. Nothing.
He needs to get his whole body into it to get the ball down the field.
Oh my gosh, it's just you saw they brought Brissett in, of course, at the last play of the half because he's Phillips just not going to get the ball down the field. But the one thing I'll say about that play as well is, I thought that the interesting thing to me was that that play was one of the things where the referees squint and they're like, all right, John, by the letter of the law, it's a catch. But really, we know that if that were a receiver, I don't think they're ever calling that a catch. But by the letter of the law, and it was, because it's going for the Ravens, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Interesting call and great play by Peters. I thought there was no way he's going to win that challenge. I mean, what did you think?
When it was bang bang initially, I thought no way. But I did have a friend over at my house who pointed out the fact that he liked their chances. So I was excited to see him win the challenge and get the ball back because I feel like that was a real momentum changer for the game. Because if they end up going down and putting up even just 3 on that drive, that would be devastating. After the Ravens put that nice drive together up until the Gus fumble. So when they get the ball back, man, they got to business then, Jimmy, because they went on a 10-play drive for 54 yards. Just running. I mean, running, throwing. It seemed like everything was open on that one. I mean, Lamar Jackson looked in rhythm. It looks like he was getting the ball out of his hands quickly. Now, it helped that Darius Leonard did go down for a portion of that drive with a leg injury. He did end up coming back and went on to lead their team in tackles. But yeah, I mean, Lamar Jackson looked good. The run game looked good. Everything was working on that drive. And it seemed like, they couldn't do any wrong. And then of course, Gus finished the drive with the 1-yard touchdown run. But yeah, I thought they looked good. And then from then on, it was just all, back to looking like old Ravens football.
Yeah, the one thing I'll mention that I also mentioned you earlier is I thought after Gus uncharacteristically fumbled, they were, John was just going to put him in the doghouse and that was going to be it, right? But it was nice to see that he came out and he got 3 touches on the goal line, 3 chances to get in the end zone in that drive you were just talking about there, and of course on the third one he did. That was in the very next drive. So JK didn't get 1 touch in the goal line, dude. They said, look, we still know what Gus can do. We're not going to put him in the doghouse. Nice to know because John he has his guys on a short leash when it comes to fumbling the ball. He usually makes them pay a game or 2.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, so yeah, I mean, it was nice to see him back out there, get his momentum going, get his mojo back. So I thought that was important.
Yeah, no doubt. And then what I wanted to ask you about, because big coming into this game, there's a lot of questions around how would the Hollywood tweet impact the game plan? Would it increase his targets? Would it take some targets away? Would he lose some snaps to Duvernay, or would he increase? He got 5 targets in the game. He had some nice plays, some big first downs, but he also had the big bobble on third down where Lamar hits him on an out route and he kind of bobbled it out of bounds and wasn't able to pick up the third down. What were your thoughts on Hollywood's performance in particular and how the Ravens used him?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was just Hollywood before. It was a typical Hollywood performance before Steelers week. It was what he was doing before. I didn't see anything. Now, there was another play in the second half. Was it a third down where he had that long catch? I think it was like a 12 or 15-yard catch. I can't remember if it was a second or a third down, but it was a great play, a big time play that we needed. And so, yeah, I mean, he made a few nice catches, but that catch to me is what everyone will remember about in this game. Everyone will think about when it comes to Hollywood's game because of the tweets. So, you can't serve 2 masters, right? Yeah, exactly. Sorry, the drop, where you can't speak out of both sides of your mouth. If you speak it, you got to back it up. Yeah. Right? You got to back it up. And he didn't on that play. Now, look, I think they're going to keep trying to get him the ball and get him more involved, and he's going to keep evolving as a player, but I still am yet to see any real yak potential, man.
It is frustrating because it looks like they go to Willie Snead in a lot of those big situations. He had another big game where he caught some real important balls. But you're right. Willie Snead, while he's tough, he's gritty, he's all these things, he is not fast. And man, we know Marquise is, and it's just frustrating to know that, man, it just doesn't seem like, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like he takes advantage of that speed by doing a lot after the catch. But hopefully, I don't know, we'll see more of that evolve. But not this time. But Mark Andrews, kind of surprising him. I wanted to get your take on Mark Andrews, because another game where he doesn't do a ton. He has 3 catches for just 22 yards. I saw him. He had a nice block in the end zone where he drives the guy in the end zone, pancakes him, gets up. He's hyped. But are you starting to get concerned? He only gets 5 targets, but just 22 yards receiving, Jimmy, is not what we expect from a guy we consider to be a Pro Bowl and one of the top 3 tight ends in all of football.
Yeah, I'm not concerned because I think it's just a product of our lack of weapons in the passing game. I think you've mentioned something like this before, but I know a lot of people will say, well, if you're going to compare him to Kelsey or Kittle, you got to get him the rock. He's got to get the rock. He's got to produce anyway. And that's fine. I guess Kittle's kind of a different situation, but like in Kelsey's scenario, what do you do? It's so pick your poison over there, right? Yeah. I mean, anybody can go off at any time and drop 40 fantasy points at the drop of a hat, right? Yep. So it's so hard to say, well, we'll just shut down Kelsey. But for us, who scares you other than Mark Andrews?
Like, I mean, Hollywood should scare you, but I don't know if he does
just hasn't this year. Yeah, exactly, right? He just hasn't. And so with that being said, the reason I'm not concerned is my next point, and I talked about this in the stats. The emergence of Boyle is important. I mean, it is pivotal for our offense to keep moving, because if they're going to say, all right, we'll take Andrews away, Boyle's got to make them pay. It makes me think of the 3-and-D type player in basketball that, like, okay, if you play good defense, but you can't hit the 3, forget it. But if you can just hit enough of them to keep them guarding you, right, keep them honest, then it makes a world of difference, right? So if Boyle can just do enough to keep them honest, I think it's going to make a world of difference in our offense, and then eventually in Mark's game as well. So I'm not concerned about it.
Nice. Well, that's good to hear.
But I have a question for you here, Glenn.
Yeah, go ahead.
Look, you talked about this a little bit, but I want to get your thoughts. We had 4 penalties in the first half, 1 penalty in the second half. So we had 5 penalties for, I think, a total of 55 yards.
5 for 55.
If
right?
I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, 5 for 55.
5 for 55. 4 in the first half, 1 in the second half. Sloppy again. What's going on, man? How can we fix this? Give me your take.
I mean, other than just harping on it. I mean, I guess that's all you can do as a coach is just keep reminding them. No, that's and then maybe remind some of the officials that work with you during practice all week to tighten it up a little bit. I mean, I don't really know what else to do, but multiple penalties. I remember there was a drive in the first half where they had a bad sack. They pushed them back. I think if you remember, they had a 13-yard loss on a sack that Lamar tried to spin out of and wasn't able to do it. Then they had a back-to-back penalties that pushed them completely out of field goal range. I think at one point it was like 3rd and 40 or something like that. That's 3 points off the board. I mean,
and Lamar took that sack.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, you just can't do that. I had another note here. A big penalty on 3rd down kept the Colts drive alive. So
Yep.
a lot of these penalties are important situations. They're putting us out of field goal range. They're keeping offensive drives alive for the opponents. They've got to stop. I mean, they just have to. You cannot continue to be one of the leaders in the league in penalties and continue to win. So yeah, I don't know what they do other than just tighten it up in practice and just keep reminding. I mean, you got to have your leaders remind the guys to keep a cool head. Judon he didn't technically pick up a penalty because they ended up declining his and accepting, I believe it was Pernell McPhee's late hit or roughing the passer. But he would have had another penalty today had Pernell not roughed the passer. Would have had another offsides. You got to clean it up, man. It's got to stop. I don't know if you want to implement some sort of a fine. I don't know what you can do to players just to try and, especially the pre-snap and stuff. It's like, it's got to stop.
What concerns me the most here is that I feel like it's starting to become a characteristic of the Ravens, right? Like before we could say, it's uncharacteristic, happens once a game. It's not going to happen every week. But when you get into the playoffs and these penalties are already either drive killers right now, but we're still winning games, or, drive extenders for the opposing team's offense, but we're still winning games. But when we get in the playoffs, man, and you're playing a Patrick Mahomes, you're playing a dialed in Ryan Tannehill even. I mean, there's plenty of guys out there. Whoever it is, if you're playing in the playoffs, this could send you packing, right? So we need to nip it in the butt and figure it out here. We definitely need to figure these penalties out. I think they need to take up more priority in practice during the week. They need to invest more time in figuring out how they can stop these penalties. End of story. I don't think they can just paint over it and say, hey, you know what you need to do? End of story. No, we're going to literally do reps. Rep this out of you, like whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, and I wanted to get into another section because, well, actually, let me just pause and let me tell you one thing that I was excited to see. When I clicked on the box score, it was quiet because I didn't even notice it during the game. But to see that Malik Harrison leads our team in tackles with 11 total tackles, I mean, that's cool to see because if he can start producing, that provides an incredible. I mean, we have a lot of depth inside linebacker. I thought Chris Board had some nice standout plays. Obviously, Patrick Queen gets better every week. LJ Fort is becoming a very important player for us normally on typical weeks. But if Malik Harrison can continue to develop, man, that's big time. And you mentioned that you saw a lot of his tackles coming on some big special teams plays.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that was awesome. I thought it was really great to see because how rare is it that, first of all, you have a middle linebacker. He's just large for a middle linebacker, right? Like tall and a big guy for today's NFL. And then on top of that, to see him getting down the field on special teams, it makes me think of a Adalius Thomas. The biggest guy I've ever seen play gunner, right? Yeah. Like just a huge guy. And, they're Naeem Hines. Yeah, their running back, who's kind of their return specialist. He was getting a little gutsy with not calling fair catches, and Malik Harrison made him pay, laid the wood a couple times. And so that was awesome to see. I was really happy to see him and Levine both doing that. But Malik Harrison coming down on special teams is great to see as well. Also, it's nice to know, like you said, with a guy like LJ Ford out, to see Malik step up, right?
Yep.
Like in a big moment, knowing that it's important in an AFC, matchup where they have the same record as us. We're fighting for the same stuff pretty much. To play in a big game, big moment, to show up was great. But I want to ask you a question here. How do you feel about how the secondary did without Marlon?
Yeah, it didn't look great early on. I was a little worried. I had a note that Bonds was kind of getting picked on, which is something you expect. It's not like I was really upset with Bonds. I thought he was trying. I was a little bummed out when he had the opportunity at that interception he couldn't quite secure, because that would have been a big moment. But I wasn't. I was pretty happy with how they played. I mean, look, I'm not gonna lie and act like they played as good as if Marlon was in there, but it's all about expectations. So I didn't expect a lot from Bonds. I didn't expect a lot from Khalil Dorsey. So what I got from them was fine. I mean, I thought Peters gave you exactly what you come to expect from Peters, a guy that'll give up a couple, but will make the turnover plays. And I mean, he did twice today with the strip and then the interception. I thought they played pretty well considering they were so shorthanded. Dorsey kept going out with what looked like a shoulder injury. Not sure the extent of that. But Bonds, we know he was on the COVID list, correct? I mean, he missed all week of practice, a guy who needs practice. So I thought under the circumstances, they played pretty well. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, same here. I mean, I think there was a lot of adversity going into this game for the Ravens defense because a lot of guys couldn't practice all week. The secondary in particular was hit because Deshaun Elliott couldn't practice either, and he was a guy that had some big plays in this game. But yeah, I mean, it was great to see. Sometimes people forget Jimmy Smith and his value.
Yeah.
And it was nice to see Jimmy in his comfort zone doing what Jimmy Smith does. Look, he's not Marlon Humphrey. But it does make an impact. Now, I don't think Jimmy did a ton of shifting in this game because Marlon was already playing the slot. So it was more about Bonds and Dorsey taking over that role. But just seeing Jimmy take on more of a role as far as, overall cornerback responsibilities was good, and remind you the value of Jimmy, why we retained him. So that was great to see. I'll tell you what, Chuck Clark made up for the absence of, Peters and Chuck Clark made up for the absence of a guy like Marlon Humphrey as far as getting their hands on the ball, causing turnovers and causing havoc. So I was encouraged, but I have a follow-up.
Hold on. Let me say something, because we didn't bring up your boy, Phillip Rivers, and you just talked about the strip. Chuck Clark scoops it and he's going down the sideline, and Phillip Rivers, boy, did he show his age. I mean, this man was trying to backpedal, fell on his ass, and flailed his arms up in a pathetic attempt to try and knock Clark off balance or knock him to the ground. It was probably not his proudest moment. It was bad, but what a heck of a return by Clark. I mean, we've seen it countless times. We saw DK Metcalf run down. Who was that? The safety.
Buddha.
Yeah, exactly. Buddha Baker. And tackled him inside the 5. They end up getting no points on that drive. So the fact that he was able to stuff it and get the score was huge in that moment. Huge play in that game. They were up 7-0 at that point. Couldn't get anything going offensively. So, wow, what a play, and hilarious. I'm sure that'll be on number 1 on Not Top 10 this week.
Oh my gosh, man, when you trip over the field. I mean, that was worse to me. That was worse than Daniel Jones' scramble for 80 when he fell, because Daniel Jones was running like 21, 22 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I heard that his top speed was like faster than Lamar Jackson or something. Like, he didn't even realize he could run this fast. He was outrunning his own body. But Phillip Rivers was like taking 2 steps to the right. I mean, that was it, right? He was backpedaling.
Yeah, I think Buffalo Wild Wings hit the button on him and had a sprinkler head pop out and triple. I mean, I don't know what happened, but it was hilarious. But one thing I wanted to get into that wasn't so hilarious, and I want to know if it's a blip in the radar, or if it's something that, wow, we faced a good offensive line and now we're seeing that maybe that those sacks are going. Had a bunch of sacks going here. Had a great games against the Bengals, great against the Eagles, played pretty good against Big Ben and the Steelers, but no sacks today. I know they got a good O-line in Indy, but were you expecting us to get no sacks against the human statue, Phillip Rivers?
Yeah, I was. And I'm going to toot my own horn here, because in our preview show, I was excited to see Judon and Ngakoue out there together, but I brought up a name that I still consider to be the most important person when it comes to sack production for the Baltimore Ravens. That is Calais Campbell. The amount of energy and attention that he consumes and demands from an offensive line is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And so the pressure that he puts on offensive line, as good as they are, I really think that we saw the absence of him in the pass rush game. I just think it
well, then let me ask you this, Jimmy. Let me just ask you, if what if Campbell's calf strain is more serious than we're expecting? Is this the type of pass rush we can expect until he's back?
No, I think it will be better than this. I mean, their offensive line is probably the best in the NFL. So I think it will be better than this, but I'm really concerned about it. I'm concerned about the calf because you remember Mark's calf. He sat out for what? His calf, last year sat out for what, a month? It was 3 weeks.
And didn't look the same when he got back, did he?
No. So Calais has been really sturdy, and very reliable and healthy and available. But I am concerned about it. Anytime a guy grabs their calf and starts moving their foot up and down, makes me
I was thinking Achilles. I was thinking Achilles, but the only thing to save me is he didn't look like he was in enough pain for it to be an Achilles.
Right. But it could be an Achilles strain.
You're right. It could be one of those things where we saw with Richard Sherman, where it was just a ticking time bomb, and then eventually it popped.
Or Jimmy Smith.
Exactly. That's not what we want to see. But the good news is that they do have incredible depth there with Matabike, coming to more and more on. You talked about his athleticism, making that diving stop. I thought Ferguson had maybe he had more good plays. I did see one blooper of a play, but I thought he had some nice moments where he was making some athletic plays. So it's good to know that there's depth at that position. I saw Jelly get up there, knock a ball down that almost got intercepted. So it's good to know that there is depth at that spot. Obviously Wolf, but I would like to see him come back because as good as those guys are, they're not first ballot Hall of Famer Calais Campbell good.
No, they're not. And I tell you what, man, it's Jared Ellis, right? I always call him Jelly, so I always forget his first name. It's Jared Ellis, right?
Nah, I don't think it's Jared.
No?
Is it?
Anyway.
Justin,
Ellis.
Right?
Justin Ellis. There you go. Justin Ellis. I tell you what, man, since Michael Pierce is gone, he's got to take over the team for biggest belly on the team, right? Oh, yeah. Like, he played good today, but he was cracking me up. He reminded me of like one of those friends that, like, when he laughs, his stomach moves up like a solid foot. You know what I'm talking? Like every time he laughs, dude. Yeah. Like, he's just cracking me up today. He's running up the field in his belly, just butter. Anyway, but I just want to take a second and take a step back here for those of you that are faithful listeners. Is that I feel like I've been kind of negative in this show, and I just want to say that we won. Mm-hmm. We got a team victory. We played complimentary football. I really believe we played complimentary football. And at the end of the day, we did what we had to do to win the game. Whether Lamar Jackson is throwing or running, the best thing about Lamar Jackson is that when the passing game isn't on, not all hopes are lost. If Phillip Rivers is off a game, right? What the heck are the Colts going to do?
Doors blown off. That's what they're going to do.
Right. But if Lamar can't hit water if he falls out of a boat for a game or for 4 games, he's still the most lethal quarterback running the football in the history of the NFL. Yeah. So I just want to say I'm happy that we won this game, and I feel encouraged moving forward. I mean,
look, let's remember, he went 19 of 23. He threw the ball 23 times. He had 4 incomplete passes. So that's certainly a step in the right direction. Now, you want to see more than 170 yards on 19 completions. That's under 10 a completion. That's not where you want it to be, but completion percentage up big time from where it was the last game where it was around 50% or lower. That can't be, but you want to see him get in the end zone more. I mean, we talked about, I think you mentioned the magic number of 3 being for Lamar. If he can get 3 touchdowns, no matter how they come, that's usually a good recipe for us winning the game, whether it's 2 through the air, 1 on the ground, or vice versa, or however you add it up. But just 1 touchdown today total. If you take away that defensive score, which of course we can't do, but if they did take that away, just 17 points, not lighting up the scoreboard and not really what you expect, even though the Colts have a pretty darn good defense. I got to give them credit.
Yeah, absolutely. But so I want to touch on a couple other things here. I agree with you here, but I want to spend some time talking about the coaching staff. And I don't want to be all negative here, but I do want to spend some time here. I want to be positive in that, we were talking about what it would be like to be in at halftime and making it, what did John say to the team? What did he say to Greg Roman? to make them come out and play so inspired and so disciplined and willing to stick to the run. I'd be interested to know, but I am encouraged. I give the coaching staff a B+ for this game. You don't have to give out a grade. It just came to my mind.
Okay.
But right, because of the willingness to make adjustments, Ravens fans have been railing on the organization sometimes for sticking on to coaches, players, front office folks for too long, or coaches not making adjustments early enough in the game. But they made an adjustment at half, a legitimate adjustment, just like you mentioned, 4 in the first half, and they ended up with, over 10 apiece as far as the running backs go. So I was glad to see it. B+ for the coaching staff. I just wanted to say, what were your thoughts on how the coaches performed today?
Well, I think you made a great point. I think it's a great thing to point out because, as we know, since Greg Roman's been here, excellent first half team, especially in the first quarter, phenomenal going down the field and scoring with the first possession, but not great in doing second half adjustments, especially when they're faced with a second half deficit. This is the first game that they've won in 20 games where they were trailing at halftime. So typically they don't make the best of adjustments at halftime, at least if you look at their last 3 years. So for them to come out and completely flip the script on this Indy team that was dominating really in the first half, outside of a couple plays here and there, they owned the first half and then completely flipped the script. We destroyed them in the second half. I mean, they couldn't get anything going offensively, and they really couldn't stop us outside the Gus fumble. They couldn't stop us hardly at all in the second half. So, yeah, whatever adjustments they made, it obviously worked. It obviously a recommitment to the 2 running backs, going from 4 carries in the first half to 19 carries in the second. I mean, that right there, that's a plus 15 difference. And they can say game circumstance all they want. We haven't been running the ball enough in the first half to our running backs. That's just plain as it is right there. So I like to see that. Now, we keep saying this. Are we going to see that in the first half next week? Or are we going to be scratching our heads and frustrated again to start the game? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I hope and pray that we get more into the run the ball, play action off of it. That's what we do. And then when we're throwing the ball, get the ball out of Lamar's hands quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the fly here, Glenn, ad lib, I'm going to be introducing 2 new segments to the show. That's right. 410 Sports Talks viewers, fans, you heard it here. One of them is called Grow and Glow. All right. It's like a highlight, low light. All right. Grow and glow. So what I want to know is give me one glowing moment from this game that you want them to use moving forward.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be a moment from the game. It can be a theme from the game, like something you saw that is positive that you want them to take moving forward. And then the grow is the opportunity they have to grow, aka something they sucked at in this game. They can improve upon. Growing is just a nice way to say it, right? Like, this is your opportunity to grow. No, you really sucked at it. So I want your glow moment and your grow moment. And I'll start with mine.
Okay.
All right. My glow moment, I kind of gave it away. Second half adjustment, period. The ability to adjust. Right. My grow moment was Hollywood Brown dropping that pass. He grew up right there. Needs to learn from that because of what he said in the tweet. You know that was burning. The vision, the flashback of him typing that tweet was burning in his brain. Right. As soon as he dropped that. He heard everyone.
Yeah.
So that's my grow and my glow. All right, Glenn. So let's start with your positive. Give me your glow moment.
Well, look, I don't know what happened in the second half to make this change. It's hard to point to like a specific thing. I mean, but whatever happened, let's do that again because Lamar. I said it here. I said it here because I had my brother and a couple friends over for the game, and I said it's almost as if they hypnotized Lamar at halftime because he came out like a different guy. He had his swagger back. He was getting the ball out of his hands quickly, accurately. It was like a different person. Different. Yeah, it was. He had his swagger back. I don't know what happened at halftime other than he was hypnotized. Is the only thing I can think of. But whatever it is, keep your swagger because I mean, he does not look like the same guy when he's. I remember in the first half there was a play. Let me know if you remember. It was a third down where it looked like an option to pitch it out, and instead he tucked the ball. I think it was actually off the left side. He tucked the ball and ended up getting tackled, and they ended up being forced to punt. It's like he was so scared to possibly miss the pitch and turn the ball over that instead he'd rather just tuck it and play for field position. That's not Lamar's game. That's not the type of player he is. He's the type of player who sucks in the defense and makes that pitch at the last possible second and gets the biggest play out of it. So keep your swag is what I want to see. I didn't like this with Lamar playing shy, playing reserved. It seemed like and thinking too much. Just do your thing. Get out there and be Lamar Jackson, because that's always going to be good enough in my book.
Dude, I don't know how you did it. This is mastery. You just gave us your grow and your glow at the same time.
2-in-1 special, Jimbo.
I don't know how you just did that, but that was awesome. I totally agree with you, though. You know, I was saying the same exact thing to Tanya. It was weird when that pitch play in the first half. You know, it was the very first drive. It was almost like he wasn't awake yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it was still getting used to the game speed and everything else. I realized it was the first drive, but
it's almost like he was scared to turn the ball over, because I'm sure he heard all week after that Steelers performance, we cannot turn the ball over. As long as we don't turn it over, we win the game. And it's almost like that was in his head in that moment. You can't be thinking too much when you're an athlete like that. You got to react.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, so this is the other one. Before we give our offensive and defensive players of the game, because of course that's something we've been doing for a long time, I'm introducing our Vince Papale Award of the game. All right, all you guys have seen the movie Invincible. If you're interested in football, I'm sure you've seen it. The Philadelphia Eagles had open tryouts. Vince Papale became a legend for a special teams player, just a hard worker, true heart of Philly type guy. Just hustle. And so our Vince Papale, unless you're not in agreement with this, but our Vince Papale Award winner of the game is Metabike for the play that you referenced. And I'm forgetting his. Is it also Justin?
It's Justin. Yeah, we got a couple Justins.
Oh my gosh,
we got a lot of them. Tucker
Justin,
too.
Yeah, Justin Metabike is our Vince Papale Award winner for this game. I loved the hustle, the recovery play where he dove and caught Taylor by the ankles there. And look, a play that's going to show up as one tackle in the stat sheet, but that could have turned into 25, 30-yard run, ended up being, I think, a 6 or 8 yard run. Not something we want, but I mean, he stopped the bleeding for such a big guy to recover at that speed and that distance was incredible. All hustle, all heart. Love to see it. Hate watching guys like Ferguson jog when running backs get to the second level. But let's give our offensive and defensive players of the game. Glenn, I will let you start. You can go offense or defense.
All right. Well, I'll start with defense, and to me, this one was pretty easy. It's Marcus Peters. He had probably the game-changing moment of the day when he stripped Jonathan Taylor, and then of course Chuck Clark finished the job by scooping and scoring. If they go in, and even if they just go up 10-0, Jimmy, I don't know what happens, because at that moment the offensive line for the Colts was kind of imposing their will. Jonathan Taylor was running strong. You know, if he doesn't get that fumble, he probably gets a lot more carries. He was running strong, man. I mean, he ended up getting kind of benched after that. We didn't see too much. We saw him a couple of times, but not too much. But, man, what a play by Peters. Totally changed the momentum. It kind of reminded me of that Seattle game, the first game we had him last year, where Seattle was already in the lead. They were driving, and he gets that pick six, and boom, changes the whole – not just that game, but kind of the whole outlook of the season after that. That was that moment where we started getting rolling. And maybe, just maybe, Jimmy, that was that moment this season.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, that could have been that momentum shift about the same time of year, about that, not exactly the same week, but yeah, that's awesome. So my defensive player of the game has benefited from Peters, but Chuck Clark, based on the fact that you just talked about it, this made me think of the 2000 Ravens, where like they knew they had to put points on the board as far as the defense goes. They just knew it. Like, if we're going to win games, dude, we got to put up like 7 to 10 points, you know, as far as the defense goes, right? Yep. So I feel like Chuck Clark knew when he got that ball, he said, I got to take advantage of this. There's no way I can have somebody stop me. I got to get to the house. And of course, Philip Rivers tried it and failed miserably. But I think for that play alone, for taking advantage of that, taking it to the house, getting the 7, putting the baby to bed, That defensive
I thought he
player of the game for
also
me.
the hit that Deshaun Elliott put on Doyle, if you remember, that hit was really unnecessary because Chuck Clark has just got done knocking the ball away with a
Breaking up the
great
play.
play. Yeah, so although Deshaun will get the highlight reel for the big hit and knocking Doyle out of the game, it was really unnecessary because Clark made that play. So I agree with you. I thought he had a nice game. Offensively, kind of hard to find the player of the game here because while Gus had the touchdown, he also only had 11 carries for 23 yards, and he did have a big fumble at the 5-yard line. So I couldn't give it to Gus. I got to give it to Nick Boyle. I thought the fact that Nick Boyle was our leading receiver, he had 4 catches for 46 yards. He had the most yards. He had the longest play of the day. He tried to make a highlight reel out of Darius Leonard, but he wasn't having none of that, trying to jump over that guy. He got slammed. But just the fact that Boyle, who's known around the league as being one of the best blocking tight ends, who was really, that's why he's here and that's why he got that extension, was for his blocking. Anything you get from him as a receiver is just icing on the cake. And every week he seems to be expanding that part of his game. You mentioned the importance that he could, if he could continue to do that, how that can kind of add another wrinkle to our offense that we might be missing since Hurst left. I thought he played well. And man, he's got strong hands. He's a horse to bring down. I like Nick Boyle, and I want to see more of him.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I think that's a great pick. I tell you what, while he wasn't successful on the hurdle, he got himself a good 3-4 yards extra based on forward momentum. Yeah, that was it alone, right? Like, you got to give him credit for that's pretty creative. So my offensive player of the game, and you guys can disagree with me here, but is Lamar Jackson. I realize the stat line isn't perfect, but look, he didn't have a terrible stat line either. You talk about it. He went 19 for 23, threw for 170, and then ended up running for 58 and a touchdown. That's still a pretty solid stat line against a good defense. Didn't turn the ball over, which is great. And the other thing I want to mention too, everyone keeps talking about how Lamar is sliding this year, this, that, and the other. One thing remains. Lamar Jackson wins football games. 25-5 in his first 30 regular season starts, ties the one and only Dan Marino for the most successful, best record in the first 30 starts of a quarterback's career. Come on, man.
25-5, Jimmy. And let me just say this. He's still going to face a ton of criticism. And I'm not saying that he doesn't, that this team doesn't deserve criticism. I shouldn't just be saying him. Because, but 25-5 in their last 30. I mean, that is absolutely incredible. So while they're not above criticism, I think we should just step back and realize, wow, we're pretty spoiled here in Baltimore right now. And man, it feels good because while Joe won us, that big Super Bowl, and he won us a lot of games, he also he had his heart broken a lot too, Jimbo. So I'm happy with who we got with Lamar Jackson and who we got around him, and of course, leading the team with Coach Harbaugh.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you 100% too. The last thing I'll mention about that is everyone will say, well, yeah, the defense, the rushing attack, this, that, and the other. Lamar makes the defense better. Lamar makes the rushing attack better. Think about it. In the past 30 games, name one attribute of our team that has made the difference as much as Lamar Jackson. You'll be labeled a fool to try and even do that. Our defense can be as good as it wants to be, but Lamar Jackson is the straw that stirs the cup, the engine that moves the car, whatever analogy you want to stick on it. He is the reason we've been 25-5 for the most part in the past 30 games.
Good or bad.
So yeah, absolutely. Right. Absolutely. So let us know what you guys think. Give us your thoughts on the game. We want to get your comments. 6-2,
baby.
That's right. 6-2. We're going to keep this thing going. We're really excited for this week. We had a couple things coming up. We're going to do a mid-season review. Of course, we're going to do our preview game of our next opponent. We got the Tennessee Titans coming. Oh, sorry. We got the New England Patriots coming up on Sunday Night Football. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Really excited about that. Let us know what you guys think. Leave us a like, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
See you.